I kept looking for Nicholas Gibbs. I can't find him anywhere. And so we thought we would get Nicholas is very proud of his hair, Brian Wong.
Hmm.
He's very proud of his hair.
Yeah.
So,
When I get rich and billionaire, I'll get hair like Elon does.
like Elon's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because Elon really was bald,
I,
and then he got hair. So
I
I
know.
can get hair. I just, when we go up 10x on Tesla stock, I'll get hair.
There you go. That is a good goal, I guess. Did you
Yeah.
like yourself better with hair or without? I mean, some people
Yeah.
think,
I've it's been like 20 some years,
I see.
I'm
Okay.
it's, yeah.
All right. Listen, we've had a complete meltdown. Let's not bury the lead too deep here.
Right.
Everybody on the channel right now could care less about anything else except the stock went down, I don't know, $25 or something today.
Yeah.
It had been falling, 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 falling pretty much ever since the inauguration.
Yeah.
Just falls and then falls some more.
Right.
So I wanted to take this, basically we know that Tesla is a story stock. It
Hmm.
is it's all built around the story, okay?
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't fundamentals, and that doesn't mean that there aren't technicals.
Yeah.
So I thought let's divide it into those three components and take
Mhm.
them one at a time. All right.
Okay.
So I thought we'd start with fundamentals. All right.
Yeah.
I would say that the average company, the guys, the investing companies, the banks, the other ones that are following Tesla, most of them think that there's a somewhere between 125 to maybe a little over $200 in stock value in the metal bending part of the business.
Yeah.
Does that make
Right.
sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
I mean, if we make $3 a share and 20, if the metal bending part makes $3 a share next year, that
Hmm.
would even, at a 50 multiple, that's only $150 a share.
Hmm. Okay.
All right. So that would
For cars, not counting energy or something like that.
no, cars and energy. So
Cars and energy.
I count
Okay.
metal bending as the energy. Those are metal containers also. See, so
I would say I would count more value from energy, but because of they stopped the new factory,
right.
it just made its first production, like yesterday, and that's the one in Shanghai, which we know is twice as big as the one in Lathrop. Um, so the fact that they have 25 to 30% margin on that, and at 40 gigawatt hours, anyway, so I I I could say you could argue for higher numbers, but things don't always trade at their fair value. You
Right.
can get to lower numbers, right? Where basically, like plenty of companies trade below uh fair value or something like that. Like that's
Sure.
why you get, things get oversold, right? And also things like um multiple parts of a company. Like GE of old would have multiple parts of the company. Oh, if we sold off the pieces, we could engineer more value because things aren't recognized,
Right.
right? So
And energy is obviously not as sexy as the cars are, or some of the other things like the robots. So energy kind of gets second shift or second shrift. I guess there's an
yeah,
R. There's an R in that I should
right.
understand.
And also the growth, even though we say, okay, it, doubled or tripled in terms of revenue from 23 to 24, and we think I'll do it again. The think we'll do it again thing hasn't happened yet. And we don't haven't had the experience of seeing, okay, it'll ramp just like that last factory, right? It'll ramp faster in China than the one in Lathrop. So even though because we have better analysis, this should happen, revenue recognition ramp, it's something that can say, I will discount that possibility
Mm.
because I don't know. Right. So yeah.
And the analysts right now are saying, look, you had a terrible year, and
Yeah.
it looks like you're going to have an even worse first quarter. So
Yeah.
the ones with a short, like Oppenheimer today, lowered their earnings per share estimate for 2025 and 2026, and they were below the $3 that I was just talking
Yeah.
about. They weren't even
Right.
at $3, but they didn't really lower their price target very much. It was
Right.
really only the fundamental again is what they lowered a little bit. So right now,
So in terms of people, uh, who are newer to the stock and don't know. From early 2019 or late 2019 up until February 21st of 2020, the stock made a big move. You know, the exact prices, when pre-split, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about that. If you look at the actual, you know, price based on what the current price is,
Mhm.
it basically went from like, you know, 10, $15 to 60. Big vertical move just like we just had, right? Up into February 21st,
Right.
right? And then boom, it went down in a month, it was at $28. So less than half. So 40.88 is equivalent to 240, right?
Right.
And then in the next 6 months, up until September, it went up to 140, right? So and then paused there for a month and then went up again to 280, right? So that was that big vertical move in 2020, where it was like it was not, boom up. It was like up to 60, less than half, up again, pause, little dips, up again. And then it had another big dip, struggled around for a bit, and then went up to the 480. And then we had the long 2 year thing, right? And that 2 year thing, that had fundamental reasons to it. But some of these other moves, people can say, oh, yeah, I could predict that. I could trade that. BS. You could trade that, right? I, even looking backwards in time, cannot figure out, when I would have traded in or out of that thing,
Right.
right? And then if you actually do it day to day, it's like,
Yeah.
no way,
Yeah. Yeah.
no way,
Yeah. No, Brian, I found the only way you could do it is hour to hour. And
right?
so in 2021, I was very successful trading hour to hour, but that's a full-time job.
Right.
You better make a lot of money because it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
I was very successful, but it was a full-time job. Okay, so fundamentals, I think we can agree that the fundamentals have not changed very much, but they're a little off. And so somebody who's very concentrating on the fundamentals might say, I should trim this a little bit, but they wouldn't trim it over 50% from the high.
Right. Right.
Now, you also have the bond yields going higher again after looking like they were going to go down. Now they're popping back up again, which means that the multiple that you would use, not the multiple, rather,
Discount value
discount
of
value,
thing.
yes, would be would cause you to also trade the stock down a bit.
Hmm. Yeah.
But again, it wouldn't account for the whole thing. So,
Right.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's turn to technicals then, unless you
Mhm.
have anything else to say on fundamentals.
So there's fundamentals in the rearview mirror and the fundamentals going forward,
Right.
right? So this goes to the glass half full, glass half empty kind of thing, right? The call had all the things about we're doing FSD, it's all going to happen, the new car is going to happen, all this stuff will happen starting June-ish.
Mhm.
Some stuff might land ahead of time to start getting people excited in terms of like, oh, that really happened. But it won't change the actual numbers
Mhm.
on the thing. It's like NVIDIA, okay, ChatGPT happens 2 years ago, and then it starts going vertical, and then it started making cash hand over fist. But they did not start making money immediately off of ChatGPT, right? It was, 3 months later, okay, some great numbers, more great numbers, more great numbers, and you guys go boom, 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 right? But the fundamentals had not changed. You wouldn't say, oh, ChatGPT happened. I will buy it on fundamentals,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, now I'm got the robotaxis rolling out in June in Austin, paid rides. Oh, you only made $100 million on it. It's like, not the freaking point. I'm 10 times bigger than Waymo, and I'm
Right.
going to grow to 100 times bigger than Waymo, 1,000 times bigger than Waymo, right?
Right.
The money's going to happen, and the floodgates will open, right?
Right.
So if you're doing this kind of like, well, I'm looking at the fundamentals on this. So your fundamental analysis would not have caught that,
Right.
right? So you would have missed it. iPhone. Okay, well, the iPhone comes out, the sales haven't happened yet. It's still Nokia selling more units. I'm looking at more units there, more cash, more whatever, right? You would be totally misled. You're not recognizing this is a game changer.
Right.
So the game changer stuff what they announced is fundamental. It's going to change. It's going to hit in 3 months. And now it's like, you're trading out, like at the February 2020 to March example. Oh, I'm so clever. I'm going to get out at 60 and then I'm going to pop right back in at the right moment in March to catch the wave up to 140. Really?
Yeah.
You think you can do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not, maybe not. All right, so now we'll turn to the place where I'm your your student, and
Yeah.
that's technicals.
Yeah.
So what do you think happened overall in the technicals over the last few months from the time that we started this giant leap and then coming back down again? I'm sorry, on the technicals. And then what happened today? Was this a capitulation or what's going on?
So for the technicals, basically you got like these lines, the top of the channel, the bottom of the channel. So the bottom of the channel going down, top of the channel going down, the other channels going up. And there'd be sub channels within this thing, right? That's the whole technical thing of like, drawing lines and saying, here's the trend that the money people are moving along, right?
Right.
So there were some, downward channel things, and then we got even worse on it. But then longer, going back to middle of last year, or something, or maybe even early last year, where we hit like 140, and then it started going up, right? Marching up to 148. So if you look at that, it'd be like going from here way up to there, getting near the top, and then coming back down. So this big fat channel was forming, right? And we haven't hit the bottom of that channel. But it's kind of weird that you would go, just shy of hitting the top of that channel. The top of the channel was actually like 500. We got to
Okay.
488 and then we turned. So it's not like these things that are precise. It's like, oh, it's going to hit that dollar
Right. Right.
number, that thing, that penny, right?
Right.
It didn't. It started falling off, right? But it got near the top of
Right.
this big theoretical channel. And then the bottom of that channel, when you line up 2 or 3 points on the bottom of where it was going, right? Like a year ago, they were like, okay, it hit here when it came down. And then over here, it looks like 330, is it? And then there's other things around 40-day moving average thing, saying that that's at 306. I
Mhm.
think Simon Hale talked about that. And then the market bias thing that we're still in this green because things are good. Dropping below 306, bottom of 300 would be bad technically. We're already bad technically, where
Right.
it's like it broke through levels 330, 350. Those were also levels,
Right.
right? And but Tesla can ignore these weaker support resistance things when it gets into these big moves, right? It can just like on the top upside, it can like boom, boom, boom. I'm punching through all-time highs. I'm punching through this. I'm punching through that. Boom, boom, boom. Keep going up, right? And then on the way down, oh, going down. Boom, boom, boom. It's like going through floors of a building. It's like this floor crash through that. Next floor, boom, 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 right? Because the floors are weak for Tesla, right?
Mhm.
But the 40 40 EMA, some of the other ones are pretty strong things, right? That being said, you could have a false breakout through it and then come back up,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
But you're in a zone where it's like it's cheap, right? When it's at these levels,
Yeah.
whatever it did down there, it usually pops up pretty quick. You
Right.
can't keep it underwater that long, right? You can push it underwater, you can go through that level, but once you're at these things, it's technically cheap and should come back up. But breaking levels, it can do that.
All
But
right.
we don't have momentum and stuff in any way on our side at this point. It's all the bears are in control.
The Bears are in control. All right. So we drop, day after day after day, 10 points, 5 points, 8 points, whatever, percentage, 2%, 3%, 5%. But then all of a sudden today we drop, a big one. I mean, and
Mhm.
when the market is basically flat,
Yeah,
uh, slightly up even possibly.
yeah.
So is I know that we talk in terms of capitulation in a bear market in the macro. Do
Mhm.
individual stocks also have a technical capitulation where it's like, okay, people have finally sold off all they're going to sell off, and now they would be exhausted in a sense?
I think it's not necessarily one person or one institution that would be exhausted.
No, I
It's basically there's some paper hands. There's only so many paper hands who are weak who's thinking, I'm willing to dump. I can't have it. I dump. So once there's enough of those out, then the ones who are still whatever aren't sufficient to keep forcing the stock down, right? Enough buy the dip people come in
Hmm.
who overwhelm that and things start going back up again,
Right.
right? So it's more the tug of war of like a bunch of different people, not the same ones,
Oh, yeah.
but a bunch of people. Freak out! I can't handle it. It's going to be, the 400 to 100 move again.
Right.
It's going to be the selling Twitter move again, right? So these people who like don't have the conviction of like, no, 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 we're 3 or 4 months away from the really good stuff happening that they're getting out.
So the more simple-minded technical analysts like me, we think in terms of psychological numbers like 300. We also
Mhm.
look at 300 as being a very strong high that was hit previously, 300,
Yeah.
310. And so would we be looking at that right now that we've hit 325? Do you think 310, 300 is going to be an even harder floor to go through because of those reasons?
Yeah, yeah, it should be a harder thing to go through. So because I think there's a lot of different levels there, like I said, you can list them off, 40 EMA, the bottom of that channel, the 330, but obviously kind of going through it, but kind of dipping through some technical channels is not, that's why you have false breakout things where you kind of go through, but not really. Um, so there's a bunch of different things happening there, so you get to more and more things, but again, going through 300 would not be good. But again, for me, it's already in the cheap zone.
Right.
The fact that a bunch of people freak out is like the move to 100, right? People freaked out on that, right? It was like, okay, we went through 140, 200, and it shouldn't have gone to 100, but enough people were freaking out that it kept going. Especially with at that time, Elon was selling a bunch of other things, kept the thing going. I don't think that those adding fuel to fire shouldn't happen, but there's a bunch of other stuff happening right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll talk about sentiment in a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
So so I saw one technical analyst today on X talking about the fact that he hopes it gets to 300 because he feels like 300 will be like a springboard, that would be kind of like winding the spring, and then we should really bounce. Now, what about the whole concept of having to test it twice?
Even guys who do this all the time don't expect perfection,
Okay.
right? If you're expecting perfection, then you're going to miss moves because it didn't go to 301. It gets to 315, right? And then the U-turn, suddenly it starts ripping up again to 360 or something like that, right? And then never, then stalls, goes to 337. I never get in at 319, right? Or never get whatever, 309, right?
Right.
So trying to time that out, it's in the cheap zone,
Yeah.
right? You're getting a good deal, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's talk about sentiment then. So there are two major sentiment stories. Then we'll talk about the minor ones. But the major sentiment stories are obviously Robotaxi and Optimus. Now, it
mm,
just so happens that Robotaxi, by your opinion, my opinion, Kathy Wood's opinion, probably Toby Seba's opinion, and I could go down and list a whole bunch of other people that are futurists, uh,
mhm.
who really pay attention to these kind of things. Ron Barron, probably I can never say
Demandus.
Diamandis, who probably believe that Robotaxi will be the largest product ever in history.
Before Tesla bought, yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
say. But Robotaxi will already be the number one retail product in history.
Mhm.
And then Optimus will be multiples of that. And so you have a company that has been building on sentiment. Let's say the stock is worth 200 for metal. We were at 480, 488 on an intraday. You got 288 points for sentiment. So
Hmm.
that's a lot of sentiment, and
Yeah.
I think that is a reasonable amount of sentiment. In fact, I could justify a lot more sentiment for the two biggest products in history
Yeah.
that will, make the stock worth multiples of that. So, what has changed about sentiment that would cause people to drop the sentimental value from 480 all the way down to almost 300.
I don't think it's dropping sentimental value. Um, I think it's lack of conviction about it.
Okay.
It's like because it's just a matter of like, do I give it 20% of happening this year? Do I give it 40% of happening this year? If I change it from, any of those two numbers, then suddenly I've half the thing. If I was 40% confident it was going to happen in 4 months, and now I'm only 20% confident. And then the other, so by having, if they were doing something rational,
Right, right, right,
if
right.
they were modeling it and doing something rational, maybe it wasn't that, right? Maybe it was just more a matter of the that Trump is in, he will put in federal robotaxi things, and then bring it in not into this year, but from 6 years down to 3 years, right?
Right.
So then there's still a bunch of variables in that, and then they're also assuming um, more actual legislative positive things for Elon Musk while he's working with Trump, right? So that whatever the story and different stories, the different people, different
Sure.
funds were working towards to to do that, and then yeah. So I don't think it's as clean as just the sentiment aspect of things.
Okay, so what we saw, so I had my little theory. I think I've told you my theory before, which is that we got the first leg of this last. So if we had the first run up to 300.
Yeah,
That run up was basically uh, predictable 6 months before because you and I both predicted it.
yeah, right,
So we thought it was going there anyway. We thought it was going to go up higher, up into the fours, based on this reality that's coming forward. Okay,
right, right.
but we had what would it call it? We had this catalyst of the Trump election
Hmm.
that Elon had participated in so much. So I saw that first leg as being heavily influenced by that. And then I've talked a lot about the Bank of America report where they first mentioned robotaxi.
Yeah,
They never mentioned, I mean, no, sorry, Optimus. They had mentioned Optimus for the first time. None of the other major banks and institutions that were even talking about Optimus. And I
yeah,
felt like that was a day you could almost put it right on the chart. That was
yeah.
the day that it took that next leg up to 480.
Hmm.
So what would have changed if I'm right?
Hmm.
And if those were the two things, the two catalysts that got us up,
Hmm.
what do you think would be negative catalysts or reverse catalysts or something else that would bring us back down just in terms of the thinking about the future of Tesla, the big future of Tesla?
So one can be just profit taking, right? That
Yeah,
takes us from 480 to 400, right? Second off of that is that the immediacy of Tesla being successful is that the numbers part, the bending metal part of things, um, didn't look so good. They were like at 15%, 14% margin. They other things didn't look so good. If you're just looking at straight numbers,
yeah,
the numbers were not so good, right? And then now we roll into Q1 and we're going through the Model Y refresh, right? And production is down. Q1 is always down,
right.
right? For car companies because you bought everything for Christmas and blah blah blah. And so that's down. And then the ramp up of the Model Y is not like going to utter perfection. There's nothing wrong with it. But, in terms of like realistically expecting what they have to do is a huge challenge, right? So then they can say, okay, that's not so good. So then they're thinking ahead 2 months and thinking, well, if we only make 400,000 cars, I don't know what Troy's number is, something like that,
Yeah.
then the numbers wouldn't be so good again,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So you can have not great numbers on that thing, right? So those two things. There was the fact that you want to get the new Model Y, that's osborning some of the other stuff,
Yeah,
right? Because I'm not buying Cybertruck, I'm not buying this and buying that because I want to get the Model Y, so I want it ramped so I can buy it,
right,
right?
right.
So then what else is negative? Oh, the OpenAI bid. right?
Oh,
That was like,
right,
yesterday, right? So
right.
Elon and Ron Barron and a bunch of other funds said we will bid $97.4 billion for the OpenAI uh, nonprofit portion,
Mhm.
right? And then the people with PTSD about the time at Twitter, when they purchased Twitter for 45 billion, think, oh, that means Elon's going to sell
Stop.
Tesla stock, right? I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
So looking at that closely is that it's mainly a something to gum up OpenAI's conversion from nonprofit to profit. There's a bunch of like legal things that have to happen. And then by making it a bid for the nonprofit side, that means instead of valuing it at 40 billion for the nonprofit side with its intellectual property, it has to be valued at closer to 100 billion and maybe above, right? So then they had a $40 billion planned investment valued at $300 billion from SoftBank, right? But in order to do that, you have to be this profitable, for-profit thing for them because they want to make money off of this thing, right? So by throwing this wrench in there, that changes the valuation, changes the numbers about it, and also, and then the fact that he says they'll keep bidding on it again messes things up. But Sam Altman has already rejected the thing. His 600 board members, some ex-Facebook guys, some ex this, some ex that, they're all in Sam's pocket. They'll never accept that deal, right? Because if they one, it's only for the nonprofit side, right? If one, there is value in the nonprofit side, easily at 100 billion, so
Mhm.
he can get other people to, yeah, we will buy that thing because we can have value because we got ChatGPT, it's got Microsoft deals, all this stuff where you can say, okay, yes, it's worth something, right?
Right.
Then, um, so even if they do get it, it's fine, and other people will pay to get into it. Elon just leaving the charge on
Right.
it, so you will not have to sell. And AJ did the numbers on it, said because SpaceX has gone up, since doing the Twitter X deal 2 3 years ago, SpaceX has gone up from like 150 billion, 100 billion up to 350 billion,
Right.
right? So Elon's portion of that is like 150 billion now.
Yeah.
And then same thing for, like XAI.
Right.
Those other pieces are up around, whatever. So he can take a loan against that 10, 20% of the value
Mhm.
and get like, 40 to 60 billion dollars of cash, right?
So
So Elon is not cash poor.
assuming he would even need it,
As
because
I mean, again, so I don't think that the transaction happens. Like,
no, I'm saying even if the transaction happened at 94 billion,
yeah,
97 billion, whatever, or even higher,
right,
right now, he picks up the phone. How many billion do you want to put in?
yeah,
And,
right,
and
right,
that's not even counting little guys like you and me, which if he
right,
picked up the phone and said, how many thousands do you want to put in? We'd
right,
yes.
right, right, right,
It wouldn't even be a question.
right.
Uh,
So I don't see him selling. Yeah.
okay.
But
So
that does throw confusion where some people do think he might sell and they
sure.
don't want the risk, and so they sell the stock off of that.
So then piling on, let's go ahead and pile on, and we'll pile on so we can see if we can make sense of it. Piling on, we would say fear about the change in the IRA, even though Elon doesn't care. He says he's never cared about the IRA. He doesn't want the IRA as long as it's, everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
But it's been mentioned, a number of articles the last couple of days have mentioned this idea that the IRA goes away. That just hurts potential sales in 2025. Do you think that's impacting thinking at this point?
If they, let's say they pass a bill, you have to pass a bill to make it go away. So that's like March, April. They have
Right.
to make a bill to do that. And then they say, okay, we can get rid of it, right? Then they wouldn't phase it out immediately, right? Because it's all these other companies, your Ford, GMs, Honda, Hyundai, like they're all using that credit. They made plans,
Right.
you know, supply chain, staffing, all these kind of things based upon that. So you would phase it out, maybe January 1 next year, right? So that means over the 7 months where you know it's going to happen, you get a surge of buying,
Right.
right? Because you want to take advantage of the tax rate before it goes away, right? It could hurt 2026
Right.
sales,
Right.
right? But it won't hurt this year's sales.
All right. But again, it might be impacting sentiment. So some people might be going, oh no, they may not be going through all the process that you just did, but rather they could be just going, oh no, this is going to hurt. Therefore, I'm less interested.
Right. Right.
Then they got the fear of tariffs.
Mhm.
So a lot of the headlines over the last 2, 3 weeks with regard to Tesla being down have talked about tariffs. And I'm thinking to myself, no, tariffs are only going to help Tesla,
Mhm.
except for Canada, maybe. If
Mhm.
Canada really, follows through and puts a 100% tariff on cars going into Canada, that would obviously not help Tesla car. Although they could just start shipping everything but the S, the X, and the Cybertruck, they could just go back to shipping Canada out of China again.
But
Which
and they could choose to write it so it's like any Tesla from anywhere,
right.
right? But the thing is, it's
In the
like
United States, you couldn't do that. I don't
right.
know if their constitution allows it. You cannot write a bill that picks out a specific company or a specific person. That would be 100% unconstitutional in the United States.
Uh, I think in theory you might be able to do it in Canada, but it's irrelevant. I'll
Yeah.
tell you why.
Okay.
One is Canada only has like 30,000 sales
Right.
of Teslas, right?
Right.
That's 8,000 cars a quarter,
Right.
right? It's meaningless, right? Two is that Canada picking a fight like that to say, oh, we're so scrappy, we're going to do this thing and that thing to attack Trump. It's like, you know, he'll squash them like a bug, because it's like there's a 10-to-1 advantage in terms of trade and that kind of stuff, right? So them getting into a street fight with Trump, and not a street fight with Elon, street fight with Trump,
Yeah.
right? That, you know, Trump will just hit them back so hard, their teeth will fall out and it's like so.
So the other aspects of the tariff, obviously, the vehicles use a lot of aluminum, a lot of steel. We've now, it looks like the 25% aluminum and steel tariffs are going to stick.
Mhm.
That's my assumption,
I think so too, yeah.
which means very likely that aluminum smelters and steel manufacturers are producers in the United States will be able to raise their prices a little bit.
Hmm.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe they raise their prices 5%, 10%, or maybe
Hmm.
their prices are already that high, 5 or 10% higher than Canada, and so they will now get that, and Tesla will pay more.
Hmm.
Do you think anybody out there that's following this is paying any attention to that small increase they might have to pay in terms of how it impacts the cost of the car?
Is anyone trading the stock based upon the average cost of the vehicles? Because Tesla put in the annual report, hey, we brought, the cost of the vehicles down by $500 on
Right,
average,
right.
right? So they did that, and then like from the previous year, down $3,000, right? So now it goes back the other way, $1,000.
Right.
Was that the reason that they were buying or selling? I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of the headlines are also saying that Elon is taking his eye off the ball. He is, he's spending all of his time in DC now. And when he's not in DC, he's off on some other venture for the government. And that therefore, things will not happen because Elon is not doing what he needs to do. Do you think this is creating fear?
Yes, there's many people who trade based upon, you know, CEO, key man, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Elon is not like other CEOs, so it's, the fact that he's the Tesla team is such a well-oiled machine, right? That, you know, Tom Zhu, all the other guys totally on top of it. He can just they can get Elon to talk to them for like 10 hours a week, and then, everything's run smoothly, right? They're close on FSD. Elon's not writing the code. They can put in, auto-aggressive transformers. He didn't do that, right? He's talking to them about, Tesla bot. If something was big, he would, not to be there. He could like he was giving instructions to his teams when he was playing Diablo 4 or something like that, right? So he can be on a Zoom call with them, call them, he is connecting to them whenever they need to have something decided. So, and then, people say, oh, it's hurting us. that whole huge run up, 200, 300 to 360,
Yeah, yeah,
that was because Biden's and the Kamala administration weren't going to push it down, because they were like doing all kinds of stuff against him. And now Trump is going for them. So the tail went with him. So like you got a 50%, maybe a double move, you know, from him doing his side project of taking over the government. So what are you complaining about?
all right, then there's the whole reputation thing because right now Elon's reputation, his favorables are down to 39%. I don't know why his favorables would still be down at 39% when Trump's are at 53. You'd think he'd be getting some of the glow from the Trump victories right now, and I think eventually he will. But there's a potential that, especially in Europe, that people are afraid that his appreciation for the FS, I forget their name now, the German right wing
AFS?
AFS, maybe AFS, that his appreciation for that group and some of the other things that he's been doing in England, that could hurt Tesla's sales. I'm figuring it might. It might hurt him about 5 or 10%. What do you think?
Yeah, it's possible that people have chosen, not to buy, et cetera, like that. So, but it's again noise in terms of like, okay, if a ship full of 5,000 cars doesn't make it, delivers next month instead of, this month, then sales are down, from 440 to 430, something like two ships don't make it. So the fact that, 20,000 sales is like not great, don't like it, but the the story, the main part of so that's $10, right?
Right,
It's not like 150 bucks or like 160 bucks that we already dropped down, right? It's not
right.
because of that this is happening. And the fact that it can move 20 bucks, we did that in a day. So you know, that thing was within a day. Because basically, as you said, the big thing is FSD and robotaxi and Tesla bot.
Do you think that what really is happening is that Tesla just did what Tesla does, that it went up on a huge amount of FOMO, a huge amount of excitement, a huge amount of jumping on the bandwagon. My neighbor said I should, so I did, and it just went way past what it should have gone because you said it should only go to 450. And so maybe if it had stopped at 450, we wouldn't have had this big reaction. And then when it does that, as you just pointed out, the typical thing is it blows off way past what it should blow off, and then it bounces off of that and goes to a new high. Is that kind of the scenario you're thinking might be going on right now?
I think that's the only part of it because I think the retail shareholders, share buyers are still, buying Tesla stock. But the bigger thing is the institutions, right?
Ah,
So, like leading up to the end of the year, they needed to get it because it was moving up. So they need to window dress it. And now they didn't really believe it. So now they sell. So I would put more credence into that. That basically, it made the move into November, through November because of the election. It was already up around, I don't know, like 360 or something like that. And then they push it up to 400, 440 because the they needed to get before the end. So then by what the peak was just before earnings, something like that, or just after earnings, something like that.
definitely.
So then they're thinking, okay, earnings are gonna be great or something like that. So it carried through a bit, and then it wasn't as wonderful as they wanted, so they sold on the news or that kind of thing. So, but it was institutions mainly, I think, that was moving stock.
All right. So, having said all of that, so there's a whole bunch of possible negatives out there that are impacting right now. And some of them make sense. Some of them are reasonable fears, even if it makes no sense in terms of we're only 4 months away from Robotaxi.
Yeah.
And at the same time that Robotaxi comes out, we could also be having literally thousands of Optimi working in the factory in that same space. So it would seem like that would make a bigger difference than a little bit of fear. But right now, it's not working that way. So, are you do you have any estimates or thoughts about where you think the stock goes between now and your 1500 at the end of the year? Or are you just happy to say, look, it'll all work out in the end, but 1,500 is still my number?
Well, 1,500 was everything going right,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So, Tesla bot, robotaxi,
Me too. Me too.
everything to perfection, right? So that's a, more perfect
Yes.
scenario,
Yes.
right? Um, but I'm still the things that I'm super confident about right now
Mhm.
are that I think Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, I would call it before the next or up to, during the Ford earnings call, will make an announcement that they're going to license
Okay.
FSD,
Okay.
right? Because he said that
Right.
Farley made the announcement they are close to a decision about level 4 autonomy,
Right.
and then he mentioned Tesla FSD, and he mentioned Waymo.
Mhm.
And to me, a Waymo decision makes no sense, and I think Farley's smarter than that. If it was Mari Barra saying it's going to be FSD or Waymo, then I would say, okay, she's going to pick Waymo, right? But Farley, I think it picks Tesla.
Yeah.
So that I think, he says it's close. In CEO terms, close means a quarter,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that means most likely time is at that, what I guess April would be when they have their earnings call. I'll
Mhm.
expect it by then,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Maybe
Yep.
in March.
Mhm.
So that's when I think, that would be a huge thing because when it forces, maybe another two companies to make the announcement that they're going to do it too. It's not going to be a wave where it's like 30 companies because Elon's and Tesla have said, hey, we only care about the big guys. So
Right.
it's going to be Ford and maybe two other guys. This is going to be it. And then the FSD in June, we've had a lot of good news about that. Hans was driving with Jay Leno saying, hey, we're testing cyber cabs in Texas right now, and that'll be part of the rollout in June,
Yes.
right? So that's another positive thing.
Right.
And then I did the calculation, put it on my site, where I said that the the number of unsupervised miles, no driver, is around um, uh, 200,000 per month, right? 100,000, 200,000 per month. My calculation of that is all of the Fremont cars are making the 1.2 mile drive, going through various stop signs and other things, avoiding forklifts, all that kind of stuff, to go from the Fremont factory to the parking lot of the loading dock, right? So 1,500 cars driving 1.2 miles, roughly about 2,000 miles per day, 60,000 miles per month, right? And then they'll start doing that for Austin, Berlin, and Shanghai.
Somebody posted that they're already doing it in Austin, but I don't have confirmation on that.
Okay. So again, adding another 1,000 cars per day, off that getting to 100,000 cars. And then there's actual smart summon, where you can call the car from 85 meters away, up to 85 meters, saying, okay, I'm in front of this building. You're parked over there. I activate you. You come pick me up. And then, hey, I drop me off at the front of the Costco, go park, and send you away dispatch, right? So I did a little survey on X, asked people how much they're using it, whether they're using it multiple times a day, whether you're using it like every day, whether you only use it once a week and stuff like that. And it was 30 to 40% using it multiple times per day or every day,
Hmm.
right? So then work that out for a week off of, so that means out of 500,000 FSD subscriptions or purchases, you look at 150,000 regular users. So that means, say, a mile per week off those people, 150,000 miles, or, like even for like a third of a mile, you're at 50,000 miles. So again, 50,000 plus a 60 or 100,000, you in that 100 to 200,000 mile per month range, which is, over 1 million per year, heading to 2 million. And that's, well, I think Waymo at 10 million for the full year, right? So even from these small, like getting ready to dip their toe
Mhm.
in at Austin, they're ready at numbers that are like one of the leaders, right? So when they say who's leading in, without human driving, right? Tesla's already there.
Right, right. Okay. All right. So you and I have both talked all last week. We kept on saying here was the floor, here was the next floor, here was the next floor. So do you have a, a final floor or I'm saying I'm
I
gonna.
would be surprised if it goes below 280.
Okay.
I don't, I prefer not to see it go below 306, 300.
Okay.
But it could do it. If it does do it, I wouldn't think it would stay down there for more than a week or two.
Uh-huh.
But it can do that, right? Especially with, a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff being attacked, short selling and all that kind of stuff.
So where do you
So,
think?
so
So where
yeah,
do you think? So where do you think we are after the next earnings call, which will be also in April, but before the launch?
it depends if stuff happens. Like so right now we haven't started back up again, right? So there's no technical reason I can say I was going to go to whatever, right?
Right.
Although reversion to the mean would suggest you should get back to about 350 or something like that, something 350, 360. But it depends, does Farley say something? Does um, you know, a new version 14 FSD 14 drop? Is there a big Tesla bot demo? Is there a demo from uh, Figure AI? They're saying they're going to show something big
Right.
for
Right.
their humanoid bot. So you can't buy Figure AI, but then if you think, okay, well, Tesla will be able to match them, then you would buy Tesla, right? So it's more event stuff happening in terms of like just the numbers. Um, because the uh, the Model Y is still ramping, because they're still ramping the uh, megapacks in Shanghai and those kind of things. There's no clear numbers earning surprise that we can say, okay, this is definitely going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Which leaves them vulnerable to getting knocked around.
Right. Okay. All right. So very quickly, because we're going to run out of time here, and I want to do the numbers.
Hmm.
So today, President Trump met with the king, I guess he is of Jordan, yeah, king of Jordan, and the king's son. And the king of Jordan pretty much said, look, we're going to do this thing in Gaza.
Hmm.
It's going to be the greatest thing ever. Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and we're all going to meet next week, and we're going to figure out how this is going to. I mean, he didn't say exactly those words, but it was this close with a wink and a nod. What happens? What how you're a student of the politics too. What happens zeitgeist wise to the United States, to the world, to Trump's reputation, et cetera, if in fact in the next 10 days, 2 weeks, he gets together and has those four guys say, look, we've got Indonesia in on this, we've got Europe in on this, here's some money that's going to be put in. I mean, and here's what we're going to do for the Palestinian people, why they're just going to be thrilled to move out, because look at these beautiful subdivisions we're going to build. I mean, what happens if that actually takes place? It's like living in the what do you call it? I feel like I'm living in the what do you call it? The
Matrix or maybe.
Matrix. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I think it basically, solidifies his reputation as someone who gets stuff done, right? That he can make the deal and that you'll be happy with the deal, right? So it's just like I don't know someone in Michael Jordan in basketball, right? Where it just, game after game he starts delivering,
Yeah.
right? So then, just upon his reputation or something like that, you know, the defenders on the basketball court would fall back or do something. They start assuming the greatness would happen,
Yeah.
right? So similar here, um, one, they know for 4 years that he can cut a deal, he'll make stuff happen. The way he says something, he's willing to fall through because he says it specifically. I
Yeah.
will do this thing, which I can do. I can do tariffs. I can do this other tax. I can, like some Afghan Taliban leader. I know where you live. I know where you're standing right now. I can take you out whenever I want. Understand this, and I'll do this. So they understand. It's a very specific. It's not like, hey, here's the red line, don't cross. No, it's like I have you zeroed right now.
Right.
You're eating a sandwich. I know what you're doing, right? So it's a very specific thing that he goes for, points of leverage. So it's like if he gets, like I want this negotiation, I've got your arm. You can tap out, or I can break your arm, and then sometimes I have to break your arm. But like, so it's very specific thing
I
that he's
really
doing.
like you, so I don't want to break your arm.
I don't want to break your arm.
Yeah,
You tap out. But if you don't tap out, I gotta break your arm. What can I do? You made me do it. So that's what he's doing. So he got the Abraham Accords, got all the Arab countries to hop onto it. He knows what they want. He knows, and he has people working for him, Jared, blah blah blah, who know what they want, right? So when he said that we're going to do this stuff with Gaza, he already talked to you know Saudi, other people who work for him, talked to Saudi, talked to Jordan, like that. It was kind of like, yeah, if you do it this way, we're willing to make it happen, right? So thus, I think it will happen, and just encourage him, and then and give his reputation for other deals, like the Ukraine. Zelensky says, "Hey, we're willing to trade land with Russia," and stuff like that, right? So those things are all moving. So once you get, a few successes along the way, he's asked Afghanistan, Taliban, give us back the equipment, right? The $7 billion
right, right,
of
right.
equipment, give that back, right? First, if someone else, Biden, had asked for it, right, it would be give us back, and they just say no, and he does nothing.
Yeah,
He's We don't know what it is, but I suspect it's the fact that he knows your top 10 leaders are here right now,
yeah,
right, in these various locations.
yeah,
If you don't do it, I will kill those top 10 guys, and then I'm going to negotiate with the next 10 guys.
right.
And we'll keep going until I get my equipment. How do you feel about doing that thing? I'm not going to go in, send boots to the ground, and then, do some kind of like have the Marines take it. I'm just going to take out you 5, 10 guys. I'm talking to you right now. You have the power to do it. If you don't give it to me. So it's the same kind of thing. So I expect, successes in Ukraine-Russia war ending, Gaza, and stuff like that, because they have the means to do this. Is moving everyone out, which is moving to Jordan, right? Because Jordan is a lot, same ethnicity, as the people in Gaza, and Egypt has them too. So Trump again is making them deals they cannot refuse. So
Pretty fun, pretty fun.
yeah.
So in the meantime, the judges are all getting in the way, but and that probably is keeping the market from going crazy, which it should be going crazy right now, just based on what's already happened. But we ended up with Tesla, there it is, down 22.23. Brian, we ended up at 328. So splitting the 328.50 even. So
Mhm.
splitting the difference between your 330 and the 325, I think was the bottom number for today. We're
Mhm.
down another $1.40. So we're
Mhm.
still sitting right in that middle ground. It'll be interesting to see if it holds at this floor or whether it goes crashing through again. Um, and the Dow was up 123, the Nasdaq down 70, and the S&P up 2 for the day with the the what do you call it? The Magnificent Seven mixed, mostly down actually, and Kathy Woods also mostly down, but mixed. So kind of a mixed day because why? Because tomorrow's CPI.
Mhm.
So what do you think the CPI is going to say? The pundits are saying that it's going to be just like a millimeter down from last month's reading. Do you have any sense that it's anything different than that?
No, I have no idea. I don't think it's moving much. I think the big move will be when um, the Doge stuff gets a lot of traction, and they cut, a lot of the waste. They're already in the range of 80 to 100 billion in terms of what they're planning to do. Getting up to a trillion is something that they can't think they can do. They said it again. And then they think they can up the growth by a trillion to totally transform the economy. So that's, in the interview with a press conference with Elon and Donald Trump, they reiterated those goals and to these bigger numbers, which they Elon said they would take down interest rates if they do that. So, but that's some months to a year away before that happens. But once that becomes credible, I'm thinking March, April, when they pass some bills to
Mhm,
backfill some of
mhm,
the actions,
mhm.
and then get the staff cuts, and then get the spending cuts to happen all throughout the major parts of the Medicare, Medicaid, military, all that other stuff that um, people will see they're actually going to get to $1 trillion. And that $1 trillion is a huge thing because the US government takes in 4.9 trillion per year.
Mhm.
Only 2.4 is individual income tax. About another 2 trillion payroll tax, another whatever. So if you can take out a trillion and then increase growth by another trillion, that 2 trillion, you're in the ballpark of individual income tax. So total game changer if that happens, right? Obviously, it's like, oh, you can keep payroll tax, but get rid of individual income tax, get rid of most of the IRS. Why wouldn't they have parades for Trump at that point,
Yeah,
right?
we hope.
If you get rid of individual income tax. So because you can then backfill the 500 million billion or a trillion with something that's very pro-growth and simple, a 10% flat tax or some other VAT, something that would still be very pro-growth but simple to administer, none of this other stuff going on. So, but that's a year away. But something to watch closely.
But like you're saying, March or April, we should say the real key is the Republicans backing him up. I've been saying this for a month. It really comes down to the bond market is probably not going to really start to appreciate this until they see the Republicans passing the bills. Because a
Right.
lot of the stuff, I mean, let's be really honest here. A lot of the stuff that he's done, a lot of the cuts that have been made, a lot of the decisions they made with regard to departments are not quite 100% legal. Okay.
In what way?
Well, because of what they call, what's that thing called capture or what? You have to spend the money. If Congress allocates it, you have to spend it. If Congress says you are supposed to do this activity, then you're supposed to do this activity. So if you
But you
don't,
can impound, and then the executive can
right,
um, change priorities and do other stuff like that. But yes, it's better to backfill
yeah, that's my
with
point.
the
It'll
yeah,
be a lot better.
a
So,
lot better.
and
Right.
it also will help the bond market believe that the Republicans are in sync with
Right.
the president. And of course, as you point out, a bunch of wins like this win in the Middle East, I think would solidify even the Republicans, much less maybe a few middle of the roaders from the Democrats might pop over as well.
Yeah, I think there's a Florida Democrat in the House who's joined the Doge caucus.
Yeah.
So it's already starting to shift over.
All right. So what we've got here then is we've got the 10-year unchanged in the pre-market, but it went up earlier today to 4.539. Not good. 2 years up 4 tenths, and the 1 month up 7 tenths in the pre-market, 7 tenths of a basis point. So not the right direction, but the CPI will have a big impact on that tomorrow. I'd love to see it go down even a tenth. That would, I think, really help the bond market soften from where it is right now. Um, pretty much everything else I think we're going to see is kind of static, waiting for tomorrow. Everybody is really interested in what's going to happen tomorrow. Oil unchanged for Brent, 13 cents for Texas Intermediate. Natural gas, zero point 0.2 down in the pre-market. It's very, very narrow trading. Gold down $7. I mean, we're talking really narrow here. Everything across the board. Let's look at crypto, 1,500 off for the day, down to 95.9. What do you think about that?
Um, I'm still thinking that crypto, Bitcoin will be up by the end of the year, that they're going to make the crypto reserves, Bitcoin plus other coins and that kind of thing. So I think those um, things favorable to cryptocurrency will happen. Just it's not immediate priority. It's the cutting, but like again in the bills, probably not immediate. I'm thinking summer.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and the stock futures are also barely changed. Dow up 6, S&P up 1, and the Nasdaq up 27, which is only 0.12%. So a little bit of movement here pre-CPI, but it's all going to be about that CPI tomorrow. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see what happens. It's exciting every day, Brian.
Yeah.
This
No.
this is just way too crazy time to be alive to watch
Right.
what's going on. Whether it's whether it's Tesla, whether it's SpaceX. SpaceX is going up, right?
Yeah. They did
24,
they
24?
did the booster hot fire,
Yeah.
and that went fine. So should be 2 weeks, I think. But I think 26 to 27, yeah, something like that.
Something in the 20s, I forget, right?
Yeah,
20.
yeah. Last week of February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So exciting on so many different levels. Thank you for filling in for Nicholas Gibbs today. Brian Wong, people should go to Next Big Future and
Mhm.
they should check out his blog. They should check out his YouTube channel. They should check out his, what else? They should check out his page.
Patreon, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Substack. Yeah.
Substack. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then coming up later tonight, 7:45, will be Brian White for our second part of our weekly get together. Last night we did an amazing one on Robotaxi. If you didn't see that one yet, I will put the card right there. Thanks again, Brian Wong, and we will see you tomorrow. You'll actually be on tomorrow night at 7:45. So
Mhm.
look forward to that show. That's going to be Brian's been planning this one since Saturday. I mean, we've got a lot to talk about tomorrow. It's been great
Mhm.
talking to you guys.